Hello, my name is Tony. At a guess, writer-director James Glickenhaus saw Michael Winner's Death Wish and never quite recovered from the experience. Assumedly it left a lasting impression. But what could be done to revamp the rogue vigilante concept? Add that little extra pizzazz and box office bait. What's popular with the great unwashed presently? Ah yes, the Vietnam War. Hollywood's been tripping over their dicks in the scramble to whack out Nam flicks. What if that could be factored in somehow? And there you have it, folks, a Rolling Thunder Death Wish combo set on the mean streets of NYC in an elevated exploitation movie with lashings of violence and mayhem. Almost a new subgenre. We could call it Vetsploitation. Yeah, we could, I suppose, if we wanted to be flagrantly vapid and inane. The Exterminator is a super grungy, down and dirty little workout that slaves overtime to outstrip Winner's classic banger in stimulating the old bread and circuses receptor found intermittently firing away in the lizard brains of the audience. It appeals directly to the baser instincts as it delivers with minimal finesse on its cathartic promise. You want a rain that washes the filth off of the streets? Grab your bulletproof umbrellas, turkeys, it's about to cat and dog it. The critics hated it. Roger Ebert called it a sick example of the almost unbelievable descent of American movies into gruesome savagery. Ooh, get her. That's the exact sort of appraisal that would make me want to see it. A shining recommendation to my mind. In the UK, the censor-drunk BBFC shit its pants and butchered the theatre print amidst convulsions of high moral overreaction. Not to worry though, it cost a mere $2 million to make and took around $55 million at the global box office. Latter movie analysts acknowledged that the film's themes of extreme violence in the pursuit of extreme justice were major contributing factors to its success, concluding the audience loved it. And I was a part of that audience at the time. Did I love it though? Well, in part, and with some not insignificant reservations. The opening is top-notch grindhouse fare. Somewhere in Nam, against the backdrop of night with napalm detonations fireballing into the sky, US soldiers John Eastland, Robert Ginty, and Michael Jefferson, Steve James are in captivity, tied to wooden stakes and tortured for intel by Charlie. The soldier next to Eastland is graphically beheaded by the Kong commander to induce him to talk. Now you lop the nut off the guy next door and a coward like me would start singing operatic arias like Super Stoolie, but Eastland is made of sterner stuff. Jefferson gets free, garrots one of his captors and machine guns the rest to bloody tatters. Released, Eastland shoots dead the Kong commander and the two comrades are rescued by helicopter. Post-war in NYC, the pair are working in a huge warehouse dealing with groceries, booze, and most significantly, meat storage and transport. Jefferson has a wife and two young children. Three members of a local street gang, the Ghetto Ghouls, are disturbed by Eastland while stealing cases of beer. When Jefferson turns up, Eastland has a switchblade to his throat. Once again, Jefferson saves his friend's life by beating 7 shades of shit out of the gangbangers. All well and good until the Ghouls take revenge by ambushing Jefferson and ripping his spine open with a baling claw. He is now completely paralyzed and on life support, a situation which tips Eastland, who experiences PTSD-flavored flashbacks to Nam, over the edge. He takes the law into his own hands, becoming a vigilante known as the Exterminator. Apparently, if you were ever a soldier in Vietnam, you got to keep a big war chest as a souvenir, in which you had army surplus machine guns, shotguns, revolvers, automatics, hand grenades, bullets, and in Eastland's case, a flamethrower. Who knew? First thing he does is capture and threaten one of the ghouls with a flamethrower for information on the whereabouts of his chums. The thought of incineration loosens his tongue. Eastland warns him,
"If you're lying, I'll be back."
Is something of a catchphrase of his that was truncated and repurposed for Arnie in the Terminator movies later, and became synonymous with both character and actor in that franchise. So begins his vigilante killing spree with the invasion of the Ghouls HQ, a delightful little apartment des res, shooting one and tying two up unconscious in the rat-infested basement of a deserted building, to be left to the mercy of said rats. Next he turns his attention to the mafia mobster Pontevini, Dick Bocelli, running slamming protection on the warehouse and dominating the meat market. Then a sex trafficker known as Chicken Pimp Tony Di Benedetto and his client, a perverted New Jersey Senator David Lippman, who's into young boys and torturing prostitutes with a soldering iron and a jar of Vaseline. Then the remaining ghouls get slabbed for mugging an elderly Jewish grandmother. The cop on his tail, Dalton, is a flip, sardonic character played by Christopher George. He gets top billing. His romantic interest is a doctor at the hospital, Megan, Samantha Egger, who as a well-known actress pegs second slot on the bill. Ginty, who plays the titular character and has most screen time, comes in third. Bit odd that. The CIA get involved in the form of Agent Shaw, Patrick Farrelly, because the powers that be in big government believe the activities of the Exterminator are politically motivated to fuck up the re-election of the incumbent POTUS, which is a bit of a nonsensical quantum leap. Shaw's boss charges him with dealing with the situation in a way that will not involve formalities such as publicity, arrest, trial or imprisonment. More a sort of permanent problem elimination, i.e. death. And that's the general run-through lead into the finale and conclusion. But what you most likely need to know is what it's like getting there. First off, let me put it this way. In comparison, Death Wish, the concept of which, let's not sugarcoat it, the Exterminator blatantly steals, is a Renaissance-level masterpiece of cinematic sophistication. James Glickenhaus is not a very good writer or director. His structure, framing, composition, and overall technique are sorely lacking, and the continuity sucks whale dick. Scenes and events jump around like a jackrabbit after a napalm enema, little coherent flow and even less refinement. Additionally, and I know it seems like I'm giving it something of a kicking here, lighting and sound are a bit shoddy and third rate as well. Now with that being the case and a lot of negative points to maybe brush aside and overlook, there are reasons to watch it. There may not be reasons that will hold appeal for everyone, especially if they don't like this sort of grindhouse type thing. The best part of the film is load shot early on, with the grueling and gruesome pre-credits opener in Vietnam. It's almost as though Glickenhaus didn't direct this bit because it's pretty tight, explosive, gripping and well framed, with a heap of stuff going on. Powerful, shocking and nightmarish. Okay, so it may rip off the Deer Hunter and Apocalypse Now, but it does put its own spin on it, the escape from captivity bit. Pontevini is kidnapped by Eastland and suspended in chains over an industrial meat grinder. Eastland wants the combination to his house safe to get hold of some cash for Jefferson's wife and kids. He asks Pontevini if there's anything he needs to know about the house security measures apart from the alarm system. Pontevini assures him there isn't. Eastland tells him,
If you're lying, I'll be back.
Pontevini has conveniently neglected to mention the savage Doberman on guard duty. It attacks Eastland, who kills it with a battery-operated electric carving knife. Now I had one of those gadgets and let me tell you it struggled to cut through cream cheese, let alone a 70-pound ravening beast of solid muscle and bone. Maybe Pontevini had a better model than me. I think mine was a Pifco. Anyway, he was lying. Eastland comes back as promised, to lower him screaming into the meat grinder, which churns out some very gristly looking mince. Pontevini is next seen in a hospital bed looking like the Invisible Man. It's an event that quite literally symbolises the grinding grindhouse. Gotta give it points for that. Cute young prostitute Candy, Cindy Wilkes, falls foul of Chicken Pimp and the senator from out of town. She is tortured with a soldering iron. Shortly after, she just happens to proposition Eastland, who accompanies her into a sleazy brothel for sex. Not the average heroic activity of a self-styled urban avenger, but I suppose he's got needs like the rest of us. Well, most of us. On seeing her burn scars, he makes her tell him what happened. Eastland burns Chicken Pimp alive with lighter fluid, shoots the senator with a hollow point bullet, and frees the young man the pervo politician has been torturing and sodomizing. Now we don't see Chicken Pimp getting torched in a graphic sense. His death is suggested off screen, which is quite restrained for this type of film. Later though, we are lovingly shown his charred, smouldering remains. Not a pretty sight. The downside is the way all this is set up. It's a very unconvincing contrivance that lacks narrative structure. Same with Eastland just happening to arrive out of nowhere immediately after the elderly Jewish lady is mugged by the ghetto ghouls. His presence is not explained at all, merely required purely to provide an excuse for him to hop on a stolen motorcycle and engage in a motor scooter chase, which leads to the explosive deaths of the remaining gang members. Some of the violent shit that happens because it does, not within a context or narrative framework, which contributes to the very uneven and uncoordinated feel. It's as though Glickenhaus couldn't think of a way to link two events together when telling the story. Hence, Eastland pops up as if by magic and without explanation. Although Christopher George and Samantha Egger are the actors in this thing in the sense that they can act and they hand in reasonable performances, Egger's character and her romance with Dalton serves no narrative purpose. Don't get me wrong, if I were making a low-budget exploitation flick and Samantha Egger agreed to be in it, then I'm gonna put her in it. She's a proper screen actress, so she is. Yet she needs some reason for being there, and Glickenhaus doesn't find one for her, other than to pad out and slow down the momentum of the piece. We see her go on a nighttime picnic with Dalton in the pitch dark and the freezing cold. We see her go to a jazz concert with Dalton. We see her initiating sex with Dalton in a room at the hospital. We see her in a white coat holding a clipboard and fiddling with a drip stand. What we don't see is her doing anything meaningful or relevant. She's a wasted resource, unnecessary, and succeeds only in impeding the pace of the thing. Although I suppose through her we do discover Dalton also served in Nam. Like Eastland, he has in his possession a souvenir war chest full of weapons and munitions. They issue these to every combatant when they leave the military.
Hey, soldier, thank you for your service, and have this with our compliments, just in case you feel the need to wage war in civilian life or go on some vigilante killing spree. Dismissed!
And talking of being superfluous, in this scene here, CIA man Shaw is trying to muscle in on Dalton's investigation. My question is this. Just who the fuck is that prick-faced rube with a pipe in his trap? Where'd he come from? What's he doing there? Is this some sort of in-joke I didn't get? Still, in the film's favour are some lovely moments of gleeful irresponsibility. There's a detailed visual DIY guide on how to make poisonous hollow-tipped bullets with a drill, bottle of mercury and solder, and an ingenious method of cooking a Frankfurter by hooking up two forks to a desk lamp. In a nod to health and safety, there is insulating tape around the fork handles. Can't be too careful in the kitchen, kids. If you're not spoiler averse and you want to know how it ends, stick with the program or skip ahead 2 minutes. Eastland tells Jefferson he's ensured his wife and kids are provided for financially. Jefferson requests Eastland turn off his life support, which he does, an act which allows Dalton to corroborate his identity as the Exterminator. Eastland arranges to meet with Dalton on a mothballed battleship. Only Shaw has the detective's phone tapped and organises a welcome party in the form of a sniper on a crane. Just as Eastland surrenders to Dalton, the sniper opens fire. Dalton is shot to shit and killed. Eastland is hit and plummets into the water. However, he is seen pulling himself onto the shore, saved by another patented Vietnam souvenir, his old Arnie flak vest. The Exterminator lives to kill another day. Almost a whole review, and I haven't spoken much about Robert Ginty, the main man. As an actor, he makes Charles Bronson look like Olivier. His lack of obvious capability and charisma doesn't eclipse a certain level of audience connectivity due to his ordinary Joe appearance, which makes him and the Exterminator relatable figures. He would play the character once more 4 years later under the canon auspice in The Exterminator 2. Glickenhaus wasn't involved in this production, and it was pretty much an unwatchable mess. Worse without his input, believe it or not. The film was a big hit with audiences, especially in America, where at the end of the 70s there was still a perception that the political class had lost control of the law and order initiative. The idea of vigilante justice, of people taking back control, kicked off by Death Wish, was very much a popular entertainment trope, especially when augmented with flamethrowers, meat grinders, lighter fluid, and poisonous hollow point bullets. Sleazy, trashy, powerfully evocative in its depiction of the seamier, salacious, more pungently savage side of NYC, the Blu-ray version I recently watched struggles to upscale the master print, which always looked dirty and blurry, but it is a visual and sonic improvement. For casual viewers who lean more towards the Jane Austen end of the movie Gene Pool, I wouldn't recommend it. For those with an inclination towards the exploitation grindhouse section of the spectrum, it's something you should experience at least once. Sincere thanks for your time and attention. Please feel free to do whatever you choose to do next. Hit like, don't like, comment, subscribe, check out my early access Patreon thing, or even make a welcome financial contribution via the thanks button. I don't know what's up next, so if anyone's got any suggestions, no harm in shouting them out, as long as you don't mind them being ignored. Still, you never know, might spark something. However it pans out, if you're lying, sitting, standing, whatever, I'll be back.